With the introduction of Lechesis into the fray, you might be wondering what Benediction Comps she can work with, or who you should be replacing on your team. Before we get into the comps, let's briefly look at her advancements. At 0 star, her little spring will heal teammates every 5 seconds based on your attack percent, but it's not a big amount. 3 stars allow you to convert little springs over heals into shields, similar to Lyra's effect. 5 stars will buff 22% all elemental damage for teammates that are within Little Spring's light wave radius. At 6 stars, you gain the execute ability on targets with 16% health and below. Matrices wise, her 2-piece increases your all attack and also healing effects. 4-piece set provides allies with a final damage buff based on the formula of your attack divided by 200,000 and capped at 30% total. In other words, at maximum you can buff 30% final damage with her matrices, and this effect must be used with Lechesis' weapon on the team. Unlike Brevi's matrices that can be used on other weapons, this goes hand in hand with Lechesis. Lechesis in Benediction mode is super simple. If you're not running 6-star Lechesis, there really isn't much for her to do as Little Spring is the one doing all of the buffs. Just use a skill and swap away. Use a skill, swap away. What you do need to pay attention to is the positioning of your allies. Both her A5 final damage buff from Little Spring and the Matrices Heartlight Radiance buff require you to be within 15 meters. And with all the other game buff of 10 meters, that's pretty much the sweet spot. So make sure you maintain the 10-meter distance with your teammates. 6-star Lechesis can execute enemies with 16% HP and below. In order to do that, you have to use her skill or the special attacks Rhapsody, Prism Tide or Radiant Shock. The tricky part is, you can't cast those special attacks if you swap away after using her skill, so you need some form of anticipation, preparing her skill when you know the boss is about to die or reach that threshold to execute. Then use her skill or those attacks. It requires some practice and good timing for this, otherwise the Fionas will end up doing your job for you. So, let's assume we have all the Benediction weapons at our disposal. If we're running a single Benediction comp and all buffs fall on you, the best buffing team would be Lechesis, Fiona and Grey Fox, with Lechesis replacing Brevi as the premium buffer. If you don't have Grey Fox and don't have Fiona, then Lechesis and Brevi can make up the Benediction core with a third weapon in Kokorita or Zero being the ideal case. One thing I have to mention is the Benediction playstyle. I talked about how Benedictions have rotations and it's good practice to have one on-field buffer and 2 premium buffers that can work in the background. Lechesis and Brevi are considered better background buffers simply because Lechesis has nothing to do and Brevi benefits from the bestie more than herself. So the third weapon being Kokorita is ideal as Koko provides strong on-field buffs in her discharge and healing bee. Lyra, as a weapon, is considered better in the background, so it's not recommended pairing her with Lechesis and Brevi as that team simply does not offer much on-field buffs. Back to the main team of Fiona, Lechesis and Grey Fox, this team is more focused on single Benediction cases as the value of these 3 are slightly above the likes of Kokorita, Brevi and other Benediction weapons. Lyra, Zero are all relegated. Fiona's Link is still irreplaceable for buffing DPS, with a Torrential Force providing weapon charge and Cage for shredding enemies' resistances. Grey Fox, with her critical buffs and final damage enhancers, is also a staple unit in Benediction Comps to combat level 100 mobs with high resistances. She also removes Graying Bite and provides us with the anti-death mechanism. With the inclusion of Lechesis, her buffs also contribute significantly more than Brevi and Kokorita, with all elemental damage buffs, final damage buffs, and the ability to execute at 16% HP and below. This, of course, is in an ideal scenario where all the weapons are max stars along with their matrices, and to stress again, one Benediction user on the team. For our endgame challenges where the usual team comp is made out of 2 or more Benediction players, things may differ. On one hand, you can have Fiona, Grey Fox and Coco Ritter, 2 background plus 1 on-field buffer, as the primary Bene main, and the other in Lechesis, Brevi and Zero, or Coco, as the supporting Benediction cast. Primary Bene mains usually follow the DPS around, while supporting Benediction may have other zonal duties to perform. Think Asurada anti-heal, or even breaking those pesky orbs depending on stage mechanics. It is also possible to utilize Lyra, Fiona and Coco on one Bene, and Lechesis, Brevi and Grey Fox on the other, due to the distribution of matrices. In the current meta, we have 4 limited matrices set in Lechesis, Grey Fox, Fiona and Brevi that are divided among the 2 Benediction players. This leaves 2 more slots for the other on-field or buffing matrices. Coco Ritter, Zero, Sakifua, Nemesis are all matrices that are helpful for the team, with Coco Ritter taking top priority. So the team could opt to run Fiona, Coco on the Prime Bene team, and Lechesis, Brevi, Grey Fox on the supporting Bene comp. It's doable. When comparing the buffs of meta teams and matrices, Lechesis teams provide a significant boost over the older teams at maximum investment. This chart is demonstrated with one Benediction team to illustrate the difference between the premium buffers. 2 Benediction player comps will scale up the buffs even further. As of late, most of the 4-piece matrices require only a base 0-star to provide team buffs and benefits, so even low investment Benediction players can contribute provided you invest in the characters wisely.
I said wisely.
Lechesis teams are no different from any other Benediction comp. You'll be using the Space-Time Rift and 5-star Omnium Shield as the prime buffing relics, and occasionally the Thalassic Heart if there isn't a tank using it, provided you have this relic, as it is a paid Battle Pass item. Other relics are not commonly used, so it's best to focus on completing the Rift and Shield if you're new and unsure what relic to choose from. Trade-wise, if Grey Fox is on the team, you'd still prioritize hers over the other Bene traits. While Lechesis does add a good amount of base attack for you to trigger her matrices, you can do better with having a good attack in the first place and equipping Grey Fox trait for the additional FD boost. If Grey Fox is not on your team, you choose between Brevi or Coco Ritter as the better trait to have. Coco Ritter's trait is still universally accepted, you won't go wrong with it. New players and F2P that are looking to begin their Benediction journey, starting off with Lechesis and her 4-piece matrices is a good choice, combined with Brevi and Coco Ritter from the standard banner. For example, a 0-star Lechesis, 1-star Brevi and 3-star Coco with their matrices already provide decent buffs for the DPS teammates. Eventually, Brevi and Coco Ritter will hit 6-star, and as a Benediction main, you should not have resource problems in investing for Lechesis. Other premium buffers in Grey Fox and Fiona is not a must, as there are other Bene mains out there that possess these weapons. You only get them if you're aiming to be one of the serious contenders in that field. Or if you see yourself as a prime Bene main that wants all the buffing weapons. Even better. Lechesis is a strong buffer and okay-ish healer, but healing isn't supposed to be dependent on one weapon only. You still have your other units, Brevi for example, in your team that does a good job of healing your allies. Pairing Lechesis with other premium buffers is really that straightforward. It's either you use her or don't. Without her matrices or advancements, she's a good to have but not crucial, unlike Grey Fox or Fiona in that sense. However, she's still a better option at base 0 stars, and for Benediction mains, you should not have issues investing in weapon stars or matrices for her. It's up to you to decide. I hope this video is helpful in understanding Lechesis on the Benediction side of things, and I'll see y'all in the next one.